Welcome to Riding Horses with KathySlack. My horse Quinn is groomed and ready to ride, so I'm going to teach you how to properly saddle your horse. We'll start with what I like is a square saddle pad. And that would be one that's thin and I can easily wash it. We like to have our Bee Cave Riding Center pads often when we go to shows. I wouldn't show my horse in a square pad. Since I do ride hunters and jumpers, I often would use my show pad for my hunters, but this would be a good choice for a jumper class. After that, I do like a half pad that's well padded. So I'm going to go to my Ogilvy half pad, place it here on top, making sure that we've covered the withers very well and that it looks like it'll be in position for my next step, which is my saddle. Placing my saddle on, you'll note that the stirrups are up for storage. That's going to keep it neat and tidy. It's not going to bother her as I put it on. And I'll place it where it should go right up close to the hairline where it meets the withers. And I'll be eyeing it up to be sure that the girth is going to fall right here near to her elbow. An important fact is to make sure that we pull our pads well up into the center of your pommel. That's the part here. And that way the saddle will actually be fitting the horse and not just perched on top of a saddle pad that's tight to the horse's body. I start lining things up to be pleased with, is the center where I want it on both pads? Is it nice and symmetric here and up far enough so that when I add my girth, we'll be real close here to the elbow of the horse. My girth is next, and this girth has a front indicated by the ring here. It's elastic on both sides, so I'm pretty happy to say I can put it on as long as that ring is facing forward. I like to put my girth on the very lowest hole. If I lift the flap, you'll see where I can put it on the first and the third. That leaves the center for any time that we might need an emergency billet strap. Maybe one breaks and you've got another. And you can also alternate those billet straps to help keep them in uniform wear. Sometimes on a horse, having the girth in either the front two or the back two might create a little better fit, but for the most part, I'll use the first and the third, and I put it on the lowest to start so that I can be sure when I get to the other side, I have plenty of room there, and then I can always come back and tighten on this side as well. So when we finish, we would like to have the holes be somewhat matching. If I'm on the third hole here, I'd like to be on the third hole on the other side, keeping things all uniform. Now, before I go to the other side, I'm going to check everything here to be sure there's nothing folded under anything that could be uncomfortable to her. So I have my square pad, my half pad, and then my saddle positioned correctly, as well as the girth in order before I go around to the other side. So as I look at it, I've got everything close. I know that this girth can come up and near her to her elbow, and that would be the fit that I'm looking for. As we come over to her left side, I notice that my saddle, when putting on and being placed properly on the other side, doesn't look anything like it's in order for this side. And that's the reason why we want to look on both sides and get things neat and tidy. As I position this, I'll notice that even my flap had been underneath her. So with the flap now away from her side and all things arranged and orderly, it didn't take much to look it over and see that there are no pieces that are folded under or flapping. I'd like to make a point that these particular saddle pads do not come with any kind of Velcro keeper or a way to hold them in place. They're considered non-slip, so I'm not going to be looking for keepers today on this saddle. However, in your sheepskin pads, anything that does have that Velcro closure, you want to make sure that you get all your keepers in place. If they're not non-slip pads, you're going to have to make certain that the saddle pad stays with the saddle. After I've made sure I like everything in the position, I'm going to reach underneath, bringing her girth up and placing it just behind her elbow. Lifting my flap, just like the other side, I'll go ahead and put it on the first and the third. And on this side, I'm comfortable that it's going to the third hole as I firmly snug it. That means when I go to get on, I can tighten it on the other side up to the third hole, and then I can come back here as well. Keeping your saddle nice and centered and keeping the girth tight on both sides equally will help with the overall balance of your ride. I did have to look and see that my billet protector was kind of curled up. Just make sure you lift your flap and go over all the pieces to be certain there's nothing that's stuck underneath her. After this, I'd go out to the arena, I would check and make sure I could tighten it on both sides if needed, and then we'd be ready for our ride.